Greetings, and today I want to use Mr. EmpLemon's second channel video, the rant that he uploaded a few days ago, to kind of bounce off of some of his talking points and generally kind of give you my own thoughts on the situation, his specific viewpoints on YouTube, and honestly, it's a chance to kind of talk about YouTube for me, especially. Now, I'm sorry that this video is not going to have snappy editing and infographics and animations, and I know that EmpLemon has apparently a very high standard for video production, so he might not like that fact. But if he can do a rant video in the woods, I can do a pondering response to it while gaming. And by the way, I'm also not going to be mad if you put this video on in the background on a second monitor and watch it while doing something else. I would never be so demanding of my audience. That is a little bit of a hint as to what some of the discussions in this video will be about. Now, I am a big fan of EmpLemon, so this is not a negative complaint video, but we will disagree on certain things. I'm not going to do a reaction to this because I don't like react content, but I will kind of summarize his talking points and then give my own opinions on said talking points. And without further ado, let's get into it. The first few minutes, up until like minute 3, is kind of the setup for how EmpLemon kind of expected a job like making YouTube videos full-time to be a low-stress environment. And without going any further, my initial argument and response to this would be, yes, YouTube, for all intents and purposes, compared to most other jobs and occupations, is a very low-stress environment, a very low-stress job, and extremely prestigious and privileged. That doesn't mean it's always going to be easy rolling and nice. And it's kind of the effect of making something your main job and going independent. You are responsible for everything you do now. All of the planning, the finances, the engagement, your fans, the channel, anything that you make yourself responsible for and anything that you inadvertently become responsible for. You have to deal with all of the copyright shenanigans and all of the possible false claims. You have to manage everything on your channel. Now, of course, there is a management aspect to all of this, especially if you start off and don't have any actual staff on standby. And if you have staff that you pay, then you have to manage that staff. You have to motivate them, you have to make sure deadlines are being kept. I believe EmpLemon does most of this stuff still on his own, but he does hire artists and other people that provide extra visual content for his videos, but he does still do most of the editing on his own, besides, the visual components like the art. So yes, you should be aware, if you didn't know for some reason, of the fact that you will be burdening yourself with effectively running a company. I mean, this might sound cringy to some people. I feel there's nothing wrong with that. I don't feel it's a problem being a YouTuber at all. But yes, you're essentially running a business. And in certain countries, if you have YouTube as a business, you are essentially forced to register it as a self-owned business. And despite all of that, I still think YouTube is by far one of the most relaxing and rewarding careers if and when you actually make it. That's the biggest part. If you actually make it over the hurdle of being a literal nobody. Now, as soon as something morphs from a hobby into a job, inevitably it will be more stressful. But that is a natural process that everyone in life experiences when they transition from school to work. School isn't fun most of the time either, but most of us still went through their generic education and maybe went on to higher education in order to have a better paying job. But none of this is essentially easygoing, because that is just a fact of life. It is a reality of living on this planet. There are always things that you need to do in order to afford a living. That's just how reality works. Unfortunately, we can't just live our lives expecting to get all of the amenities that we should be getting. You have to kind of earn your standard of living. And let's not ignore the fact that some people would literally kill to be in a position EmpLemon finds himself in. I personally know how it feels to get up at 4 AM during the winter time while it's fucking pissing and snowing to catch a train because you can't afford to drive a car, and that train takes almost 1.5 hours to get to its destination, and then you still sit there and you have to wait for another hour until your shift actually starts because the train timing is this fucking bad. I know how it is to work in a job where essentially every coworker is suspicious of each other, and as soon as someone is 5 minutes late to anything, you have to deal with 5 to 10 people staring daggers at you for 8 to 10 hours a day while you have to deal with absolutely horrendous customers. Just imagine being a package delivery driver. You are at once the most hated person alive if you don't deliver the packages, but also at the same time you have a thankless, low-paying, shitty job. Both are true at the same time. Somehow, being a delivery driver is one of the shittiest jobs that also ends up with most people hating you. I know personally I am always pissed off when my packages get dumped on the sideways, or they don't arrive, or I just have a note in my postbox that tells me they didn't meet me today even though I was home all day specifically to retrieve that package. Lord knows everyone is fucking pissed at the package delivery driver, even though, let's be honest, most of the time these people are just poor fucking schmucks who get paid almost nothing to do one of the shittiest jobs imaginable. So when complaining about your job as a million-plus view count YouTuber, I feel it is important to have a little bit of reverence and think realistically about your insane privilege. There are people out there working in literal dirt under every type of weather for 10 hours a day and make less than 1% of what you are making. Video making is easy. It is one of the most prestigious jobs out there, short of just being a literal con man. And to his credit, EmpLemon does explain that he doesn't take any of his achievements and the popularity for granted. So at least he does have that wherewithal to notice his job is indeed highly prestigious and coveted. He also talks about the reasons for getting stressed out. Those reasons obviously being a scaled up production and increased production costs of making his videos better and better and better. However, at this point I do have to ask, I watched his latest video and I made sure to watch both of his rant and the Garfield assassination video in its entirety while not doing anything else, in order to get like the full context of what he is referring to when he talks about like high effort kino cinematic level editing. And his latest video about the presidential assassination is a competently told and illustrated historical documentation with presentations, illustrations, and his very specific meme editing style interjected. Now, all of this is fine, but I feel like the way he talks about this almost is overselling the video. It is a fine presentation, but it's not on the level of actual historic documentations. It shows very nice historic paintings. It shows art done by a commissioned artist, and it has, you know, some of the Simpsons animations in there, some of his memes, but that is the long and short of the content that this video offers. Now, all of this is fine and dandy, but for how he speaks about the effort and sweat put into these projects, I feel like he is pushing himself a little bit too much for no particular reason, because if we're honest, this is competent video editing, but it isn't unforgettable cinematic kino editing that belongs into the YouTube halls of fame to be like a classic that no one will ever forget. I don't think we're on that level. Short of making an actual documentary with animations, actors, and real on-location filming and real interviews, how much more upscaling can you even do to improve these projects? I, for once, personally, like his older content, or I guess he would argue his less effort videos. I guess this is how he would label it nowadays. Now, don't get me wrong, the highly edited documentary styles are fine too, but it somehow, in my opinion, has less EmpLemon personality. And again, when speaking of scaled up productions in video editing and quality, I fail to see how Emp's newest video production, that has burned him out so much, somehow topples all of his old ones, and also also somehow has way higher quality editing. He has a specific style of editing. He definitely has a unique style, but the Garfield video boils down to the EmpLemon meme style of editing, a bunch of still images, zooming in and out of these still images, transitions, historic paintings, and then specific artistic renditions that he paid for. And then obviously, you know, Simpsons animations thrown in there. How is this insane cinematic level editing? How is this edge kino? It is an honest question. The artist, I get it. That must have been quite a lot of drawings, quite a lot of work, quite a lot of trying to communicate with the artist, trying to make them pose different scenes. That is what I understand. I guess this might be the level that he's talking about. This is the upscale in quality and the effort that he's talking about. But if that stresses him out so much already, and I can only speak for myself, then I don't need that quote-unquote extreme level of editing. And I don't want him to burn out on these projects, because that means I would get less EmpLemon content, and that would be bad. So I would rather he scales back his production for his own sake. And to be honest, and please, Emp, if you're seeing this, don't overreact when I say this. Well, we will be talking about this later. To be honest, most of these documentaries and these long-form essay videos are second monitor content. It is a nice historic piece to listen to while doing something else, and I promise you I will elaborate later, but it's not the right time. And this is how most people consume long-form video essays. Keep that in mind, park this thought. Some people might get mad at this. I am not, and I think there's nothing wrong with second monitor content, but we will park this thought for a moment and continue on in his actual rant. Emp, you could put up a black screen and I would still watch you. Not gonna lie, I tune into your channel for your personality, not for cinematic level editing. That is why I enjoy the Downward Diaries, because they are much more real and personal EmpLemon content. I actually tend to enjoy the second channel more so than the main channel nowadays. But that is a personal opinion. And you worrying about the artists working and being motivated, and you are being worried about being in this managerial role, taking care of like sponsorship deadlines. That is something you have taken on for yourself, because you have made this your main income source and job. I mean, the fact that the sponsors seem to be necessary tells me that the million view videos alone don't make the income to keep the staffed channel going with the artists and so on and so forth. Or at least it seems it is necessary to gain extra income sources to keep the production up. And this is why I don't know personally, I wouldn't mind if you went back to solo productions and just did your EmpLemon thing like you used to do. As a personal fan, I wouldn't mind that at all. I would continue to give you money, I would continue watching, I would even continue to watch sponsorship segments even though I'm not a big fan of sponsors. Or is all of this at a point where people would no longer watch you if you scaled the production efforts back to give it a more relaxed try again? I don't think so, because I think you have dedicated fans who would watch your stuff no matter what. Again, I would watch your videos if it was just a black screen. YouTube to me has always been about personalities I find interesting. Even better if the interesting personalities have interesting things to talk about. And with Emp, I feel like he's one of those personalities that I can just listen to for hours on end. Listen to. You know, Emp, you make the challenges in lives and you decide how difficult challenges in life are for your own. If you choose something and you choose to do it the hard way, that can be very rewarding. But if you burn yourself out on this, you should rethink your approach. And your video being 2 days late and that delay turning out to be like a genuine kick in the teeth for you, from what I can tell from the video, that is something you put on yourself. And that is only something that you alone put on yourself. No one in your community did scold you for being 2 days late. I don't care about this. Your fans don't care about this. We are tuning in to your videos because we like your channel, and I don't care about a video being 2 days late. Do your fans or Patreons care about a video being 2 days late? I don't think so, and I don't care either. As I said before, I would still watch you if you uploaded every 5 years once and it's just a black screen. I don't know if it's good to set yourself such strict goals and have such escalating aspirations in your job if you can't keep up with them. Now, I do agree, having aspirations and scaling up production value is a good idea, but maybe in this instance you were kind of pushing yourself too hard for no real reason and no real benefit either, because you yourself admit that the last 2 projects burned you out and you don't feel rewarded for doing it. So that means something is wrong with your approach. As the owner of your own company, it is also up to you and you alone to figure out how to approach video production in a less self-destructive way and take the heat off of yourself. No one else can do that for you. That's the unfortunate reality of having made YouTube your job. It's just like that. I cannot help you with that. No one in your fan base can help you with that. You have to make that decision on your own. Also, let's be honest, YouTube has always been a game of RNG. You are solely dependent on the whims of this company. You are not even really employed, or let's be honest, you are not even valued as an employee. And you have nothing, you have no say in anything that this company is doing. And you have no way of steering where this company will be going. One day, the algorithm could fuck you over and kill your channel, and there is no chance for you to ever come back because someone changed something in the background that just says your videos will no longer be appealing to anyone. And that's how YouTube has always worked. And if you get fucked over by a false claim or a strike, that might be the death nail for your channel, and nobody at YouTube will be there to give a shit. And this is only going to get worse. The more and more the AI bullshit is going to be involved, the less and less actual humans are involved in the moderation. That is something I agree with when we are talking about YouTube getting worse, but that's also something that's going to come later in this video. Even bigger creators who have more than 1 million subscribers have been wiped off of the platform, wiped clean off of YouTube without a real reason given, and they have never gotten their accounts back. That is because you hold no power as a content creator on YouTube. Zero. Unless you are a late night TV show host. YouTube, I feel, was almost always, besides maybe in the very early years, it was always a short gains game. It is not something you do for your entire life, and it's not something you do start out at making your primary job. I personally want this YouTube channel to be a hobby that maybe can pay a little bit extra for my life, maybe a little bit extra into my retirement fund if any video takes off. You are not owed anything on YouTube, nothing. Sometimes you make videos that take weeks and weeks and they die at 500 views and they never go anywhere. Tough luck. That is how YouTube works. That is how YouTube worked back in the day. That is how it works nowadays. Back in the day, YouTube was smaller, and that is why people who jumped in early got a better start. Nowadays, there is no point in wallowing in the past because the past is not coming back. You shouldn't look back at the best classics on your channel and then kind of get angry or disappointed that your newer videos don't reach that audience anymore. Because again, YouTube is a lot of RNG and it's a lot down to the algorithm nowadays. And you shouldn't beat yourself up over your videos not getting the desired view counts. 1 million plus views is more than enough, but I can't help you if you don't feel validated or euphoric when you see those view numbers. And instead you feel burned out by making the video. I can't help you with that. But just imagine how smaller creators feel, especially smaller creators who have made this their job. That is why I would never recommend you ever start YouTube as your primary job, especially not if you give up your education for this. Don't do that. Get a solid starting capital. You need to have some sort of fallback. You need to have an actual job in the back of your hand, something to fall back on. And then you can start off making YouTube videos as a hobby, and eventually you can turn that into a job if it takes off. I would not want to live paycheck to paycheck, worrying if I can pay rent or not. And this all depends on if YouTube picks up my video in the algorithm and if I get a YouTube copyright strike or not. I would hate to live like this. It is true that you should feel some sort of euphoria when you are done with a large project and you share it with the world. But YouTube does not always agree with that. Sometimes you feel disappointment because the video doesn't take off. Also, one of the reasons I personally am trying to not overcommit too hard to the production value on this channel is the one reason one shitty copyright claim is enough to derail the entire video. I, in fact, again, will choose to just forego any monetization just so that I don't have to mutilate the video, because I don't see the point in sacrificing my vision just to make $400. But for any content creator that needs that money, having a multi-week long production demonetized due to some idiot claiming a random song in the video that was supposed to be royalty-free, that is probably genuinely devastating. This is one of my main gripes with YouTube. If there's anything on YouTube that I have a gripe with, it is copyright. Copyright is the bane of everyone's existence, and it should be abolished, aborted, thrown into a blender and turned into red mist. And this is also when EmpLemon gets into his main talking point, that being how YouTube has changed in the past few years. So we are now shifting from his intrinsic motivations, which should be the only reason you make videos in the first place, and we are switching to the extrinsic motivations, which is YouTube, your success on YouTube, and feeling the validation from getting views on your videos and getting the effect from uploading. And this is 90% of his video. Here are his main points summarized quickly so we don't have to turn this into a 2-hour video. Let's just go through them one by one. You cannot tell the quality of a video before watching it. Why? Because the 5-star rating is gone. The like to dislike meter is gone. Makes sense? I completely agree with that. There is no real competition anymore. What does that mean? YouTube is the only real platform for video publishing out there. That's a problem. I do agree with that as well. People expect to not be hated online. They want YouTube to be a hug box, and that is something I wholeheartedly agree with. The internet is not a safety bubble. If you choose to share with every potential being on the planet, you will be criticized, you will be hated, and you have to be aware of that fact, and you have to commit to jumping into the kitchen and cook. And if you can't cook, get the fuck out of the kitchen. Quality is irrelevant nowadays on YouTube. That's also true. There are no classic videos anymore. Let's talk about that one later. Nobody remembers the content that they watched 5 hours ago. Yesn't. It's almost impossible to find good videos now on YouTube, and that's also something I disagree with. Most videos are soulless. Yes, the mainstream videos, but this is also something I don't entirely agree with. Popular content nowadays is slop most of the time. Yes, absolutely. There is no rewatch value when talking about mainstream content on YouTube. Also correct. YouTube became just television, an algorithmically driven program that's just the same as watching any other program on TV, and that is entirely correct. Autoplay is one of the main reasons, and EmpLemon hates autoplay, and I also am not a big fan of that autoplay feature. Autoplay is garbage. Mainstream late night channels take views and power away from independent creators. Not just that, I would add onto this that mainstreaming of YouTube is one of the main reasons you have to deal with so much copyright nonsense nowadays on the platform. People actively choose to watch slop over high quality content, and that's true because slop's easy. It's easy to consume and you don't have to think a lot. And a lot of human beings are simple creatures and they want easy entertainment. And if you get slop served to you, that's easy entertainment. There are infinite, unending, never-ending scrolling shorts content that people watch. It has broken young people's brains and literally social engineered them to be idiots. And you are no longer in control of your content curation if you watch shorts content. I tend to agree with that. But there are ways to curate what you see on YouTube, which we will be talking about later. Creators actively dumb down their videos to pander to this shorts audience. Something I'd also agree with, but that's also more something that mainstream channels are doing. There's nothing worth watching on the home feed. This is also something I would disagree with. The effort of making videos does not match the results. That depends on how much effort you put in, and that depends on what you expect from YouTube. Obviously, EmpLemon expects way more from his YouTube career than he's currently getting. Me personally, I'm kind of vibing. I'm not that black-pilled when it comes to effort matching results. YouTube is completely oversaturated. Yes, the entire online space, everywhere where you're going to Twitch, you go to any kind of social media, every space is overrun and oversaturated, absolutely. Demonetization and detection systems are out of control, and these automated detection systems are also somehow dumber and more retarded than they were before AI came into being. That's completely correct. It is insane how ridiculously mentally challenged the content detection system is on this platform. It is an actual art form to make an AI that is this stupid. And then also he talks about AI slop for a little bit, and that is most of his main points and most of the rant video summarized. And to be honest, I do agree with most of these issues. Some of these we will be talking about a little bit more because I feel like it is needed, and some of the other points we don't need to talk about at all because it is as obvious as bright daylight. Now I want to add to some of the points, starting with the idea of effort being punished on YouTube. And what EmpLemon means by that is, and what I mean by that is, when you try and musically or visually enhance your video, 90% of the time the video will be somehow claimed by some no-name label. And it is at this moment I get to rant about my rather short time on YouTube for a little bit, because you wouldn't believe what has already happened on this channel. I have made a vow to never upload a singular short anymore, because whatever algorithm there exists that shifts through these and goes through these shorts, it is mentally retarded and it is actually dangerous. I had a short claimed for violence and harassment because it had the SpongeBob clip in there where Patrick hits a can with an axe. Nothing else was in the short. It was that SpongeBob clip unedited with a little bit of meme music on there. It was a meme. It was a YouTube poop. That is all it was. And that got claimed for violence and harassment. No chance to appeal, no reply from YouTube, and we all know the Twitter account is completely useless too nowadays, and that was a community guideline strike in like the first 3 weeks of my channel being in existence. Totally automated, by the way. And you know why? Because that video was never published. It was private. Yeah, that is the reason I'm not uploading shorts anymore. Fuck shorts. And then I had copyright claims on some of my videos of a random music label claiming literally all Silent Hill fan music that I use sometimes in the background of my videos, while providing both the wrong rights holder and the wrong song title. Yes, the song that I got claimed for literally does not exist. The artist for whom the label is acting on behalf of does not have a Silent Hill piano fan song with that title. Now thankfully, if you are persistent and you just dispute every claim immediately, they always drop it, because they would have to take me to court over a song and a melody that 1 does not exist and 2 wasn't even used in my video, because it turns out that the Silent Hill fan soundtrack I'm using isn't even owned by that label. It is made by an entirely different band that just happened to also make a piano rendition of the Silent Hill 2 theme. And it's not like a piano rendition of the Silent Hill 2 theme is super fucking unique. And also, the only relevant rights holder here is Konami. Let's just make that one clear. So I can fully understand why EmpLemon is rightfully fucking pissed off about this situation, especially if you have a large backlog of videos with lots of music. Now let's talk about the aspect of classic YouTube content. I personally have quote-unquote modern YouTube videos that I do indeed rewatch from time to time because I like them. A lot of it is animation content, to be frank, but to me these are rewatchable, high-quality YouTube videos. In short, to me these are classics. And these are not like filthy Frank type content. These are modern YouTube videos from 1 or 2 years ago. So it's not like we have lost all of the high quality YouTube classics. Maybe EmpLemon is searching in the wrong place. The whole YouTube Hackbox thing is also totally agreeable. I hate the fact that the entire internet needs to be this safe space bubble where everybody needs to be babied and needs to be hand-holded. I absolutely despise it. But seeing how it seems that YouTube has eased up on some of the ridiculous thought policing at least a little bit, I think that is a good sign. Certain video titles and thumbnails would not have been okay at all a few years ago. So in this aspect, I actually think YouTube is getting a little bit better, and it allows for a little bit more diverse thoughts and opinions nowadays, even some that might be radically different on both sides of the political aisles. Now this might all change in the next election cycle, and I'm talking about the US elections here, but we will see. Let's have fun for now and just see where this is going. To me, this is actually something I do like about modern YouTube. You get to be somewhat edgy again. You get to be somewhat more open with your thoughts again without being instantly nuked from orbit. I do feel, however, he did not hit enough on the AI aspect of this whole sloppification process, because I think a lot of this is due to the rise of genuinely zero effort AI slop videos. And I'm not just talking about an AI edited thumbnail that's like a stupid meme with some slight AI edit. No, I mean full-on AI-generated videos, AI-generated scripts, AI-generated voices, literally zero effort, no work put in, because it's just putting a prompt into GPT or Gemini or whatever, and then it spits out the entire video for you, including the visualization. That is what I see as one of the main issues on YouTube right now. It's one of the reasons I use an add-on that filters out all of the shorts, because shorts are infested with AI slop. I would also like to talk about the 5-star reviews and the like ratios, not on YouTube, but on other sites, because EmpLemon makes a point here that the 5-star rating exists to tell a customer whether they're making a good or a bad decision. However, have you taken a closer look at some of the reviews on Amazon, and have you maybe watched one of the recent Louis Rossmann videos about companies trading positive reviews with each other? And do you know how many 5-star reviews are just literally bought and paid for? And do you realize that 99% of game critics and reviewers nowadays, for example, are literally paid shills? I don't really know if this is even true anymore. I would argue even in places where these 5-star rating systems still exists, there are at least 80% unreliable nowadays and basically useless most of the time. In a similar vein, just a personal tidbit, did you know that German restaurants can use slander laws to force Google to remove negative or 0-star ratings? Yes, if that's news to you, now you have been a little bit enlightened. So anytime you see a German restaurant rated on Google, always remember there is a chance that low-star ratings might be removed because Google doesn't want to deal with German slander lawsuits. So tell me again, how useful are 5-star review ratings really nowadays? I don't think they're that useful anymore. Now, when we are talking about quality, I feel EmpLemon puts a little bit too much value on just the visual editing and window dressing of a project. His rant video in the woods is not high quality at all, but it's so much better than anything else on modern YouTube because it has soul. While just being a simple rant video, it is thought-provoking because it motivated me to talk about it. It is interesting without needing snappy and high-quality editing. I don't think visual stimuli are always the most important part of a YouTube video. For me, it was always about personalities, people that are interesting and have interesting or ambitious stories to tell or projects to show. There are obviously differences here. An animation project is visual. It needs to look visually interesting. There are nuances to these opinions. Funnily enough, Emp talks about videos like Hair Cake, for example, something that I personally have never rewatched, and honestly, I wouldn't rewatch that again. So, you know, this is another case where it's all down to personal taste. But I feel like, personally, there are much better classics on YouTube out there than just Hair Cake. I mean, this was just an example that he named, but I don't know, man. Hair Cake is fine, but it's just this kind of crass classic YouTube content. I have different YouTube classic content I rewatch that I think is better than hair cake, and it's not just shock value content. On the topic of finding quality videos and creators, maybe I can give you my approach to all of this because my feed is fairly clean and I always have something to watch on the home screen and I rarely see slop in my recommendations. This is how. Search for any below 10k sub channel, small creators. And YouTube even does recommend small channels fairly often, to me at least. If you engage with the sub 10k YouTube channel landscape, all of a sudden good quality videos start appearing. Unique individuals start appearing. The last time I watched a video from a 6+ million channel, that was a long time ago. That was a long time ago. Search for the underdogs. Search for the up and coming, and most importantly, search for those that do it as a hobby and not as a cynical means to make money. And that is how you find a soul, and that is how you find a you in YouTube again. I follow so many great small channels, from actually good game reviewers and critics, to arts and crafts, to animation, to media critics, to just fun channels that do random projects. It's easy to curate that experience as well if you are persistent and tell YouTube to fuck off enough times. My feed and recommendations look clean because I do hit do not recommend on every paint explainer type thumbnail I see, and YouTube does indeed stop recommending AI slop to me if I do it enough times. If I see any zoomer bait, any high contrast over designed thumbnail with a generic bait title, I hit do not recommend. If I feel like the video is going to be a bait and switch on me, I just hit do not recommend. If I see any astroturfed garbage creator, I do hit do not recommend every single time. And eventually it will have an effect on your recommendations and the slop will indeed disappear. Also, there are useful add-ons that will remove, scale down and disable YouTube's engagement metrics and features. PewDiePie actually had a pretty good video on how to downscale and disable basically any annoying feature on YouTube. Basically make YouTube usable again. So through my use of the strict do not recommend button and a little help of add-ons, I still feel like I'm on the quote-unquote good side of YouTube. It's not classic YouTube and the classic era is gone and there's no point in wishing for it to be back, but I managed to get YouTube as close as possible to the good old times. Again, search for smaller creators. That is all I can give you as a recommendation. Anyone that's below 10k subscribers, check them out. Just check them out. Now though, I believe we need to talk about something more problematic, perhaps provocative, or at least the most disagreeable point in the video. EmpLemon talks in length about people watching his videos as second monitor content, which I admitted to earlier, and to no surprise, he absolutely hates the idea of people not watching his videos as primary main screen content. I'm sorry to say this, and I have to reiterate, I tune in for your opinions, EmpLemon. I tune in for your views on things and the stories you tell. Your narration in the videos is more than enough to understand the gist of it. Do you honestly expect people to sit down and watch you rant in a forest for over an hour straight without doing anything else besides being glued to the screen? Do you watch YouTube videos like this? Listen, I like interactive media. I am playing and have been playing games 99% of my free time my entire life until I started making videos. Before I found video games, I was primarily a guy reading books because during the process of reading, because reading is much different to watching a movie or listening, even listening to an audiobook. Reading is very different because while you're reading, your mind makes up everything else. And I love that. I absolutely adore when my mind goes wandering and I kind of spin off into other stories and what if scenarios. And you have the leisure time to read at your own pace and you experience the story while having enough time to stop and think and let your mind wander into that universe that you are reading from and that you're experiencing. If I pause a video all the time to let my mind wander and then I come back to it later, or I take excessively long breaks in between, I always feel like I should rather rewind to the start as to not miss anything that happened in the video. You take information in much more thoroughly while reading. Watching something, in my experience, even when you actively do so, it never stays in your mind the same way when you're actually reading or in fact when you're writing something down. I also feel it's weird to pause videos and then continue on after a long break. So usually a even long form video, I think, should be consumed in one go, or at least within a few days. Otherwise, you will forget half of the previous parts of the video, because a video is not the same as a book. A movie or a curated video like yours, it is not something I ever consumed while just glued to the screen. Well, when I watch a movie, I'm not doing anything else. So sorry, that was a wrong way to word this. Curated documentary style videos are not something I've ever consumed while being glued to the screen. And ever since I discovered video games, I'm not a big fan of movies anymore. I have always listened to long form content unless the visual component of the video literally cannot be ignored. And the question here is, what are you missing from the EmpLemon video? We're gonna take the example of the Garfield assassination video. What are you missing out on when you're not seeing the artistic renditions? Essentially almost nothing, because the way the video is structured, it is so detailed and so in-depth that due to EmpLemon describing almost everything that is going on, you don't need the visualization. The only thing that you miss out on is the skits and the memes and the Simpson clips when they are not using the original audio and they're just being played as like a silent transitional audio piece, or while EmpLemon is maybe talking. That is something that you will be missing from the video, the mimetic content, I guess. But that is all that you're essentially missing. If you listen to the Garfield video, you will get the gist of the video. You will understand what this is about, because it is mostly documentary style content that explains everything with the words, and the visual components are additional visual stimuli that help to illustrate what is going on, but they are not necessary. I feel like this is kind of, I don't know, is this like controversial? I don't think so. Maybe tell me in the comments. I want to actively interact with media, truth be told. Truth be told, if YouTube wasn't a thing, I would instead just be playing video games and nothing else besides that. And I maybe would be reading a book. I wouldn't watch movies. I haven't watched a movie in ages, because at this point I kind of see it as a waste of time, because let's be honest, most modern movies are trash. I would much rather experience the story of a good game, or listen to an audiobook, or read that story myself, or hell, I would rather write my own story before I sit myself down for 120 minutes and watch someone else's curated paced story that usually comes from a book anyway. The Lord of the Rings movies were the last truly great examples of true cinema. That is something I do indeed sit down for and watch every few years. But truth be told, again, you would have to deliver insane levels of visual quality in your EmpLemon videos for me to actually sit down for 1+ hours and actively watch the video from beginning to end. If you're making something more than the illustrative documentary style slideshow presentation that most of your videos are, if you are scaling up your production values even more, maybe then I will watch actively the entire thing from beginning to end, and I will do nothing else besides for 2 hours straight. But at that point, it literally needs to be a movie. I feel like this is complaining on a very high level and being very demanding of your fan base to actively watch these videos. I will never scold or demean my audience for putting up something I made in the background, and I will never look at this and say this is some sort of underhanded comment or like a weird double-faced argument, or people are making like a strange, compliment. They're not really meaning it. No, this is supposed to be a compliment. I'm sorry, Emp, you might not like this, but this means that people like your content. I know. If this comes across as some underhanded, two-faced, weird flex, then I think that's a you issue. But I guess when you're at the level of EmpLemon and you have that much of an aspiration for your videos, maybe you can kind of have that mindset and attitude. I don't know. Please verbally slap me if I ever say something like that. That also goes for whining about YouTube. YouTube being like too hard. If I ever do this, I expect my audience to make fun of me for that. Also, EmpLemon, okay, without trying to be insulting, but your visual level of editing and quality is just not on the same level of a movie or an animation project, which is something you watch actively. You put up images and graphs and animations, and that's very nice. That is high quality, it's competent, I like it, it looks good. And maybe you can tune in every now and then, but it is essentially a slideshow of still images with music, commentary, and the occasional Simpsons skit. Sorry buddy, but I have to disagree with you here. Not everyone needs that visual stimulus to get the content of your videos, nor is it interesting enough to actively watch it. I'm sorry if this comes across as mean-spirited. This stuff is also really long. These documentaries are excessively long, and I have honest question to you, EmpLemon. Do you always actively routinely watch documentary style content? If you even do you even watch YouTube? Do you have watched 3-5 hour YouTube videos as primary content while doing literally nothing else besides? I mean, I do agree the world would be a better place if we would engage with media on a more deeper scale like this. But do you do this? Do you live by that example? I think you cannot expect your viewers to watch hours plus videos with just complementary edited images, videos and memes committed and fully chained to the screen for the entire duration. For that, I think, again, you would need to deliver actual kino cinema. And if you feel unfulfilled in your current situation, if you truly feel unfulfilled, and if you would like to work on like truly ambitious projects for the rest of your life, if YouTube does not feel like the right avenue for this motivation, then maybe look into a different type of occupation that might be feasible. You gathered a great amount of amazing talent over the years. Maybe you can make the actual epic cinematic project that trumps anything else that came before. Maybe not on YouTube though. Maybe you need to take that talent and take it somewhere else, where it might be appreciated more, maybe into a different job. But then, you know, I would miss that EmpLemon content, and if that happened, I would be pretty sad about you being gone. So instead, I would like for you to just kind of look inward, and I mean, you talked about this, you are going to figure out how to not destroy yourself and burn yourself out on content, which is, I think, a good resolution to your rant video. Try to find a way to not kill yourself over making YouTube videos. Always keep in mind you have one of the most prestigious jobs out there that other people would kill for. I think you can figure this out and work through this. YouTube has always kind of been a shitty website ever since the internet became mainstreamed and pussified, and it's not gonna change anytime soon. I'm here to have fun with it as long as this specific period of YouTube lasts. So I have a different perspective on this issue, I guess, but then I'm not, I'm not a primary content creator. This is more of a hobby for me. I would never actively make this my primary income source. It's supposed to act as a driver for me to do something productive each day instead of just rotting in front of a PC game. And this is my personal resolution for YouTube, and is my opinion on the site. It's shitty, it's always been kind of shitty, but some of it has gotten better, and there are tools out there to blank out the garbage slop, and it takes one click to make shorts disappear forever, and I have never looked back ever since. So yeah, I see YouTube more positively at the moment, and I hope we keep on going in a more free speech oriented, less restrictive direction. And eventually I feel like YouTube is also going to figure out how to deal with like the zero effort AI slop. I think this might also kind of solve itself depending on what happens with the AI market in the future and how we get in tune with AI, because I already feel like I'm getting more skilled at noticing what is and isn't obvious AI slop. I still believe there will be a concerted effort within the wider audience wanting and demanding for more authentic human-made content after everyone's gotten their fill and has gotten sick and tired of the bargain bin mass-produced AI slop factory garbage. And there will always be idiots. EmpLemon, let's be honest here, we know there will always be soulless idiots who cannot be helped. Just ignore these soulless golems, make fun of them, and let them eat the slop like the cattle that they are. That's it from me. See you next time.